Conor McGregor's UFC comeback just got emotional, because now, one of the greatest fighters in MMA history is speaking out, and Georges St-Pierre sounds genuinely worried. The UFC legend admitted that seeing Conor McGregor return and fail at UFC 329 would be heartbreaking. That's a powerful word coming from someone like GSP, a man who understands exactly what it feels like to leave the sport, disappear for years, and then try to return to greatness. Because unlike most people giving opinions online, Georges St-Pierre has actually lived it. And according to him, coming back after a long layoff is one of the hardest things a fighter can ever attempt, especially against someone like Max Holloway. After nearly 5 years away from MMA competition, Conor McGregor is finally preparing for his return fight against Holloway at UFC 329 during International Fight Week in Las Vegas. And honestly, the entire MMA world still doesn't know what version of Conor McGregor is coming back. That's the mystery. The last time fans saw McGregor inside the Octagon, he was laying on the canvas with a shattered leg after losing to Dustin Poirier in 2021, one of the darkest moments of his entire career. Since then, the comeback rumors never stopped. Every few months there was another headline. Conor is returning. McGregor is training again. Big announcement coming soon. But the fight never happened. That's why UFC 329 feels different. Because now, it's finally real. And the opponent is not easy. Not even close. Max Holloway may actually be one of the most dangerous comeback fights possible for McGregor right now. A relentless pressure fighter. A cardio machine. A former champion who never stops moving forward. And Georges St-Pierre understands exactly how difficult this challenge truly is. Because GSP also disappeared from MMA for years before returning. Back in 2013, St-Pierre walked away from the UFC at the peak of his fame. Then 4 years later, he returned and shocked the world by defeating Michael Bisping to become middleweight champion. So when GSP talks about long layoffs, people listen. And according to him, the biggest danger isn't only physical, it's mental. St-Pierre explained that fighters returning after years away must recreate real discomfort during training camp. Not comfort, not safety, discomfort, fear, pressure, chaos. Because the Octagon punishes comfort immediately. GSP even said fighters sometimes need to train with people they've never worked with before. People who make them nervous. People who move differently. Fight dirty. Try to hurt them. Why? Because that uncomfortable feeling matters. That's what prepares fighters mentally for real combat again. And honestly, that advice says a lot about how serious this comeback really is. Because no matter how talented Conor McGregor is, 5 years away changes a fighter. Timing changes. Reflexes change. The sport changes. And meanwhile, Max Holloway never stopped evolving. That's what makes this fight terrifying. While McGregor dealt with injuries, business ventures, controversies, and life outside the cage, Holloway stayed active. He kept fighting elite opponents, kept adapting, kept sharpening his game. That's why so many analysts believe Holloway enters this fight as the favorite. Not because McGregor lost his fame, but because inactivity destroys rhythm. And Holloway's style is built to punish fighters with weak rhythm. The longer fights go, the more dangerous Max becomes. That's the scary part. Because historically, Conor McGregor has always been most dangerous early. Fast counters, sharp timing, explosive power. But Holloway? He drowns people over time. Pressure, volume, cardio, pace. Round after round after round. It feels endless. And after 5 years away from competition, nobody knows how McGregor's body will respond to that pace. That uncertainty is exactly why Georges St-Pierre sounds concerned. But at the same time, GSP also gave McGregor respect. A lot of respect. Because according to him, Conor doesn't return for small things. That line matters. McGregor could have chosen easier fights, safer fights, winnable fights. Instead, he accepted one of the hardest stylistic matchups possible. That tells GSP something important. It tells him Conor still believes in himself. And honestly, that belief is part of what made McGregor such a global superstar in the first place. Because throughout his entire career, Conor built himself on confidence. Even when nobody believed in him. Nobody thought he'd become double champion. Nobody thought he'd knock out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. Nobody thought he'd become bigger than the UFC itself. But somehow, he kept making impossible moments happen. That's why fans still can't fully count him out. Even now. Even after the injuries. Even after the layoffs. Even after all the chaos. Because there's always that feeling with Conor McGregor. Maybe he has one more legendary moment left. But GSP's biggest fear is emotional. He admitted it would genuinely hurt him to watch McGregor return looking like a shadow of his former self. And honestly, a lot of MMA fans probably feel the same way. Because whether people love Conor or hate him, nobody wants to see legends decline badly. That's one of the saddest parts of combat sports. Watching greatness slowly disappear. And McGregor's comeback now carries enormous pressure because of that. Because if he wins, everything changes instantly. Title conversations return. Super fights return. The aura returns. Suddenly the entire UFC feels different again. But if he loses badly, the conversation becomes brutal. People will question whether he stayed away too long. Whether the sport moved on without him. Whether the Notorious version of Conor McGregor is gone forever. That's why UFC 329 feels much bigger than a normal fight. It feels like a test of legacy. For Holloway, this is revenge. A chance to defeat the man who beat him before either became champions. But for McGregor, this may be about proving he still belongs among the elite. And honestly, that's why the MMA world feels so emotionally invested in this comeback. Because nobody truly knows what happens next. Maybe Holloway overwhelms him completely. Maybe McGregor shocks everyone again. Or maybe the truth lands somewhere in the middle. But one thing is certain. The pressure on Conor McGregor has never been heavier. Not even during his championship years. Because now he's not only fighting an opponent. He's fighting time itself. And that's a battle every fighter eventually loses. The question is, has Conor McGregor reached that moment already? Or is there still one more great performance left inside him? That's what makes UFC 329 one of the most fascinating fights the sport has seen in years. So what do you think? Will Conor McGregor prove Georges St-Pierre wrong and make a legendary comeback? Or will Max Holloway show that the UFC has completely moved on from the McGregor era? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because in MMA, legacies can change in a single night.